Today, I wanted to talk about fighters who had a rough year in 2024 so far. This could be due to a losing streak, bad luck, or tough interviews. Just anything that hasn't gone to their way. As usual, this is just a list and this isn't going in any particular order. Obviously, I can't include every fighter on this list, so if I'm missing somebody, I'm sorry. So I'm going to start the list with Paulo Costa. He hasn't had a good year at all. This guy has suffered 2 losses, and it seems like his perception of him as a high-level fighter is starting to fade. People are beginning to doubt his abilities, and it looks like Costa is struggling to pull the trigger. And if he really wants to win, he should be more aggressive and go for it. But he didn't do that against Sean Strickland, and he didn't do that against Robert Whittaker. Sure, he landed that cool ass spinning head kick, but he got schooled in the next 2 rounds. Costa should be more aggressive like Drake is. And I think if he doesn't change his style, I think he's going to keep going down and down in the rankings because Costa is in a tough spot right now. He's 1-4 in his last 5 fights, and I don't see him improving anytime soon. I think he'll probably drop out of the top 10 and probably be a top 15 fighter instead. Up next, we have Cody Garbrandt. For those who don't know, Cody had a solid 2023. He secured 2 wins and regained some confidence, even though it was against unranked fighters. It was still a big boost for him. However, the UFC decided to match him up against Figgy, which I knew was a bad idea because I'm not gonna lie, I knew he was going to lose, and as much as I wanted him to see Cody back in the rankings, competing in the top 10 or top 5, it's just not realistic anymore. Figgy is an absolute beast, and while Cody looked decent in that fight, he ended up getting submitted, and it was a tough loss for him. Now, don't get me wrong, Cody might be able to keep beating unranked fighters and possibly squeeze into the top 15, but he's never going to move past that. It's just a tough reality, but Cody's time at the top seems to be over. It's unfortunate because he's in one of the most competitive divisions in the UFC, which is the bantamweight division. Next on the list is none other than Michael Chandler. Oh boy, where do I even start? The guy hasn't competed all year and is still completely delusional, thinking he's gonna fight Conor McGregor. It's like he wasted 2 to 3 years of his fighting career waiting for something that's never gonna happen. Chandler is in denial, and it's kind of sad to see. He's on Twitter making cryptic tweets saying he won't wait forever and that the sport will move on without him, and I'm sitting here like, yo Chandler, it sounds like you're one of those guys who can't let it go. Seriously man, just fight someone else already. Let me remind you that Chandler's last fight was like 2 years ago against Dustin Poirier when he was 36. Now he's 38, still waiting around like Conor's just gonna magically appear. Chandler, buddy, it's time to stop. Find someone in the top 5 and move on. You're never going to get that Conor McGregor fight. You're just in denial. You're coping like crazy. At this rate, he'll still be waiting for Conor, even when he's 60, probably making tweets from the rocking chair. Next on the list is Colby Covington. We all know Kobe's last fight was late last year in December, and we were expecting him to take on someone in the top 10 this year. Initially, he seemed interested in fighting Wonder Boy, but honestly, that would have been too easy for him, and I'm glad he didn't go that route. However, he really dropped the ball by not going after Ian Gary, especially when there was some momentum there that was building between the two and their trash talk. But Kobe decided to brush it off, saying Gary wasn't worth his time and all that. And it's wild to think that because he basically talked his way out of a fight. To make things worse, his interviews aren't drawing the same viewership anymore, and it seems like he's more focusing on gambling these days. 2024 has been a rough year for Covington overall, and rightfully so because he deserves it. Up next, we have Tai Tuivasa. Man, it's been a tough couple of years for this dude, as he hasn't won a fight in over 2 years and is currently on a 5-fight losing streak, including those 2 losses this year. Unfortunately, he's been losing to lower ranked heavyweights like Marcin Tybura, and he even got outclassed by Rosenstrike. It's disappointing to see, but it's becoming crystal clear that Tai Tuivasa might need to step back and fight somebody that's even lower in the rankings just to regain some confidence. He's relying on power alone, just isn't cutting it in the top 10 anymore, especially with the level of competition we're seeing in this division now. Next up, we have Kelvin Gastelum. He's one of the most inconsistent fighters in the rankings. Sometimes he shows up strong and other times not so much. But the real issue with Kelvin isn't just his performance, it's his ongoing struggle to make weight. He made a video titled Missing Weight with KG, which became a recurring theme every time he fought at welterweight. Yeah, there were some exceptions where he did make the weight, but there was other times where he didn't. And he did it again this year. We all knew he was going to miss weight when he faced D-Rod, and during the post-fight interview, he practically begged Dana White not to cut him. And it's crystal clear that he lacks discipline, and it's disappointing to see. Up next on the list is Tony Ferguson. Honestly, what can I say about this dude that hasn't been said already? Tony is on an 8-fight losing streak, and he got steamrolled in just 3 minutes in his last fight this year. Yet, he's still not retired. He even left one glove behind, and for all we know, he might be back in a few months. Tony hasn't had a good year since 2019, and things have gotten downhill ever since. I really hate to include him on the list, but I just had to. Next up on the list, we got Steve Erceg, man. He practically got robbed of winning the UFC flyweight title, and after that, the dude got knocked out by Kai Kara France, man. That is rough, especially since he was gaining some serious momentum. People were starting to say that he was the next big thing in the flyweight division with his elite boxing and his grappling, but then he got folded. In a division where knockouts are pretty rare. Poor guy, man. I'm not saying that he got fraud checked, but that really sucks, man. Next up, we have Alex Volkanovski, man. This guy was the pinnacle last year, holding the title of the pound for pound best fighter, but now we're here in the present and he dropped to number 9. It's wild how things have changed. Last year, he got knocked out by Islam Makhachev, I believe in October, and he made a quick turnaround for a fight in either February or March, only to get folded again by Ilia Topuria. And it really sucks because it feels like people have forgotten about Volkanovski. It's like nobody really talks about him anymore, and he's not relevant as he once was. But it's hard not to feel bad for him, seeing how quickly the narrative around him has shifted. It's like he went from being on top of the world to almost an afterthought in such a short time. The last fighter we have on the list is Magomed Ankalaev. Whether it's that draw in the fight for the vacant UFC light heavyweight belt or the no contest with Johnny Walker, he just can't catch a break. Despite having one loss in the UFC, he still hasn't had a title shot. They even passed him up for Khalil Roundtree. I generally feel bad for him. It's pretty clear that the UFC doesn't want him as champion, and honestly, if his next fight ends in a draw, I wouldn't blame him for losing his mind. But anyways, guys, that's the end of the video, and if you guys enjoyed it, please leave a like and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like always, guys, I'll see you guys on my next one.